It's the weekend edition of Kakaki, the African Voice. Time to start talking. We're starting here in Abuja, where we will be evaluating how African nations are working to achieve the Millennium Development Goals. That's the MDGs, in case you didn't know. Now, some countries are said to be working at a slow pace and may not likely meet the targets, while others are striving hard to achieve the goals. What is the evaluation of efforts of African countries in meeting the MDGs, and what can be done by countries lagging behind? We're joined by someone who has a long curriculum vitae, but we'll edit it, because otherwise we'll be here till the end of the program and not get on with the questions that we need to ask. So we're talking about Joanna Kerr. She's currently the Chief Executive of ActionAid Worldwide. Now, ActionAid is actually an organization we are very familiar with here in AIT. Glad to have you on the program. Let me tell you a little bit about Joanna. She joined ActionAid from Oxfam, Canada. Now, prior to that, she was Executive Director of Association of Women's Rights in Development, which she transformed into an international feminist membership organization, mobilizing 7,000 people and 200 organizations to influence women rights activists. Wow, maybe we should get her back here to talk about some of the issues that UNIFEM brought up with INEC chair, but we're looking at the MDGs today. And she was also a senior researcher at the North-South Institute, Ottawa, where she managed the gender program for 7 years. Well, let's talk.
I don't know, with all these things, she should be about 100 years old with all these things she's done, really, but as you can see, she's not.
She's not, okay. So you can...
All right, Joanna, you're welcome. Let me just welcome you to Nigeria. You were just telling me just before we went on that you came in about less than 24 hours ago. I mean, what's been your experience in the last 24 hours?
Well, when one lands in Nigeria, immediately one gets the sense of a thriving, energized nation, highly politicized, certainly big news in the ports given the arms that have just been discovered. But, you know, I live now in South Africa, and I was just telling you earlier that I arrived there in the middle of the World Cup.
Perfect timing.
And it's an exciting time to be living in this continent and be working with so many amazing activists and social movements that are trying to make positive change.
Oh, yeah, right. Well, talking about positive change, you can start off with your evaluation of Africa's efforts to meet the Millennium Development Goals.
Yeah. Well, I was in New York just last month, and, you know, we're 2/3 through the way now. 2015 is only 5 years away.
Yeah.
And it was, I have to admit, I went in with quite a bit of hope, thinking that we could be celebrating much more than we are. But if you look at the target of halving hunger and poverty by 2015, we're not there. And not only are we not there, in fact, chronic hunger in Africa has actually increased since we started this whole project. And that, we have to condemn ourselves, we have to condemn our leaders, and we have to condemn a little bit of the development model. But let me not completely paint this overly negative picture. I mean, there have been some governments that have done some very good work. ActionAid has actually highlighted Malawi, that have been able to bring the number of individuals who've been dependent on food handouts down from millions to a mere 150,000. So there's been some very interesting initiatives over the years to provide the kind of subsidies around agricultural subsidies, food inputs, etc., cash transfers that have been quite significant in social protection. So we have to give kudos where they're due. But what is worrisome in terms of the whole global understanding of the MDGs, you know, many governments were going in trumpeting in New York. Hey, we're getting there. But actually, if you take China and India out of the equation, that's where you expose the fact that there's actually more chronic hunger in Africa than when we started.
Okay, before we go into the aspects of the I like to talk good news first.
Yes, why not?
So apart from Malawi, what are the other other countries that are doing well?
Well, I mean, it's hard for me to name one by one, but you've got many initiatives. I mean, there's There's 8 goals.
Yeah, okay.
And so if you go one by one,
Yeah.
you can actually name all sorts of incredible initiatives. I mean,
Okay.
maternal mortality, there's been a huge amount of investment in maternal mortality. The kind of health sector reforms, you know, I'm embarrassed I don't know enough about what's been happening right here in Nigeria, but you've seen across the continent health sector reforms that are truly tackling some of the real structural causes where we actually need to be providing the kind of investments whereby, you know, when you look at maternal mortality, for example, many people say that's kind of the canary in the coal mine, right? If you have that many women dying in childbirth, you know that something systemically is wrong. But the fact that we have been able to lower this in some parts of the continent shows that we now are giving the kind of investment to traditional birth attendants. We've got early warning systems in play. So, you know, these are some positive things. You know, you saw from my bio, I'm very committed to the rights of women. And
then I better watch it then. Better watch it.
We all need to watch it.
Okay.
You know, this is an affair for all of us, whatever gender. But you know, for ActionAid, our real primary focus has been trying to tackle hunger.
Yeah.
So the kinds of investments that we're increasingly seeing in smallholder farmers. You have the CADUP initiative. I hope your viewers know what CADUP is. You know, it's a commitment by African governments to invest in agriculture at a minimum of 10% their national budgets and that's really taken hold. And so you're now seeing a shift. This is good news, where you're seeing much more investment in local farmers, mostly female farmers, and the kind of investments that are actually going to tackle hunger. So there is some good news. But if you look at those statistics and to see that chronic hunger has actually increased in this continent.
Okay, let's go back to.
Okay, sorry.
All right, go ahead. I mean, like I said, I need to be careful.
Yeah, you need to be.
Go ahead.
You're blessed amongst women.
Yes.
Yeah.
Talking
Again.
about the increase in chronic hunger, how did that happen?
Yeah, well, where to start, really? I mean, we have primarily in so many parts of the world, we've been trying to tackle agriculture by investing in plantation and export crops. So many of our investments have been not targeted at the poorest of the poor. We also have been pushing trade liberalization and opening up markets. And I know there's much debate in this continent about EPAs and agreements. And so you have over these years World Bank, many bilateral agreements, really trying to push plantation, export-driven, corporate-led globalization. You're seeing a lot of subsidies given to biofuel companies. There's land grabs. The fact that people need to grow their own food, the fact that women farmers, primarily who are producing food in this country, in this continent, are not getting the kind of extension services, are not getting the kind of investments, that don't have control over land, that don't have access to land. This is a fundamental cause of growing hunger. We can't completely ascribe it to policy. Climate change has actually had a big impact, right? We now are recognizing across the world the kind of erratic rainfall. It's increasing drought, it's increasing floods. I've just come from Ghana. The rains haven't stopped, and they're talking now about a real crisis in terms of their rice crop this year. Because if the rains don't stop, the rice won't flourish. Yeah. So you have climate change, you have policies and approaches that are not addressing ways to adapt to very different types of climate change. So these are two structural causes in terms of our investments, our policies, but also a very rapidly changing